I'm Neil Roos, and I'm a professor of history. And I've always been a bit of a sort of outsider on the edge of the discipline. I trained within the ambit of the Wits History Workshop, but I was registered at the University of Natal. I did my PhD at one of the former homeland universities instead of one of the major research universities. And I've been appointed editor of the then Journal for Contemporary History, renamed to the Southern Journal for Contemporary History in January 2019. And in a sense, my own editorial vision has been shaped by my own history of working from the sides, from the edges, from the borders of the discipline. We changed the name, as I said, and we work with a marvelous editorial collective made up of Joyline Kafundirori, who's the managing editor, and two associate editors, Tinashe Niamunde and Siraj Yengde. All are PhDs in history. And while I'm nominally, I suppose, the traffic warden as the editor-in-chief, we do try and work as an editorial collective. As I said, I come from the sort of borderlands of the discipline, and I felt that in being offered the editorship, I didn't want it to be business as usual. I didn't want us to go on soliciting, in the words of a former editor, more traditional types of history. I wanted us to push the margins of the discipline, push its historiographic and methodological frontiers. I felt that that was the way that this journal could grow, that it could become relevant in the discipline and the profession, that it could become a place where new kinds of history could be explored. And in particular, I've been interested in the idea of a Southern history. What a history of Africa, of modern Africa, look like? Why would a history of modern Africa, or should a history of modern Africa, written from here, from the geographical and I suppose ideological reaches of the South, look different to one that was written from, say, Oxford University? I chatted with the then management committee of the journal, headed by Dean Heidi Hudson, and I said, look, I would be keen to take on the editorship. I've not edited anything before, and I'm not a very good organizer, but I've got some ideas about the discipline. But I said I would only like to take it on if we could implement what were really sea changes in how we went about things. And they trusted me with that. I'm deeply grateful for that. They trusted me, and I set about, initially it was an I, it then became a we as we started working with the editorial collective. I started casting a new kind of vision, and I thought that the idea of a Southern journal really captured what we were trying to do. We were trying to give a very distinctive voice to histories that were written from a particular place. And that's really what prompted the change in the journal. And the first few months were really, really hard. I think that we've begun to turn the corner. We are beginning to attract a reputation for being the sort of difficult child in the realm of history journals, the one that plays very close to the railway line or the edge of the cliff, and it's sort of where we want to be. We are beginning to develop the kind of identity that we want. I think that we're not going to be regarded as a second-rate publication, but as a very viable alternate publication for historians, not only from South Africa, because we are no longer a South African journal, but from the continent.
So the Southern specifically refers to the African continent.
It does refer to the African continent, but we do leave our way open for essays, contributions from other parts of the global south. For example, Suraj Yende, who is one of the associate editors, his work is on Dalits from India, the so-called untouchable class. And in the next issue, we're going to be publishing an extended review of a book that deals with gender across caste lines in India. So we are beginning to attract work from other parts of the global south, although I believe that the majority of our work will remain on, about, and from Africa.
Maybe just as an example of the differences in what you're publishing.
Okay, sure. Let me give it a try, Cornell. And I'm not trying to say what we're doing is right, what they're doing is wrong. The older journal, I felt, had traded up on the issue of contemporary. So it was publishing a lot of work which I suppose was more properly, could more properly be called political science or international relations. Now, we presently don't have a problem with that, but we felt that we wanted work which was in those disciplines to show a strong sense of the historical. In other words, a sense of context and a sense of change over time. We wanted to reposition the journal as a fundamentally historical article. So that was the first change. So let me give you an example of where we're going to. A young fellow last year sent us an article on the songs of the liberation struggle in Zimbabwe. And he showed how these had changed. So number one, that was very, very clearly historical. Number two, why would we position this as a Southern history, or why would we call it Southern? I mean, is there any value in that adjective? And I think there is, because if you could take your, I suppose, most people studying the Liberation War would do it based on archival sources, which largely would have been housed in formal archives and would have been written in English. But this young scholar was able to look at songs which were in Shona and write a historical piece about that. So it moved it very much into realms of knowledge which exist here, which aren't accessible in other parts, let's call it, of the Northern Academy.
Thinking about that author, what's also good is, okay, you're an open access journal, so the access to that article is, well, bar not having internet to anyone, and your authors keep the copyright. That's also contributing to so much in the global south. But you also spoke about, it seems like you had quite a lot of challenges when starting out. Was there anything specifically related to the open access nature of your journal that was challenging?
There was. We had a flurry of furious letters from, let's call it, traditional readership base of the journal, because they wanted to get their hard copy in the post once a month for all sorts of reasons, not least of all the 25,000 Rand printing costs. We didn't want to go that way. We are publishing in areas where postage from South Africa isn't a guaranteed, where there's not money for subscription, and where people are more likely to read something on the internet or on their computers than something coming through the post. So it wasn't only a political decision about open access that we wanted to move to, but it also relates to how we positioned the journal and who we imagined we wanted our readers to be. That was a very, very important consideration.
So, I mean, a lot of what you've said so far really answers my question about, I almost want to say, what is unique about your specific journal in South Africa and the South that would make them publish in your journal.
Let me tell you why I think people could or should publish in our journal. First of all, I think that we offer an ongoing reflection on where the discipline is going, what it might be doing, what emerging themes. Our aspirations are pegged close to the edge of the discipline. We've got very strong ties with other regional historiographies. So people who publish in our journal and who read our journal are going to learn a lot about how African history is written in different parts of the continent, because there are very strong regional traditions. And us, especially in South Africa, we tend to think, well, we don't need to look beyond how we do things or the 2 or 3 ways we do things in South Africa to understand African history. That's not so. To other parts of the continent, people have very different methodological, even prose styles of writing, and we are bringing those into conversation. Secondly, we've got a great review team. It's part of the reason I think I was given the job as editor, that we try and build up scholars, we try and support scholars, we want a young cohort to come through, and that has implications for who we choose as reviewers as well. So we try and do a constructive review process. What we do, especially with younger scholars, or if the reviews are quite strong, is I write an editorial letter to each author. Once we've got the reviews in, saying, look, this is what the reviews say, but these are the things that we think you should target in improving your essay. We then do another internal review process. So it's quite a supportive and iterative process. And the third reason why I think people should publish with us is that as of last week, we've launched a seminar series. We are the only journal situated in South Africa, working in history, to have an adjacent and linked seminar series. We don't want an essay to be published just so someone can go and claim their DHET subsidies. These must be the subject of conversations. And we believe that through these methods of a seminar, through deep reviews and a blog, and publishing from across the continent, we are enabling conversation.
Okay, we were talking about the challenges, Joyline, in publishing an open access journal. What advice would you give somebody? What should they have in place, and what should they think of if they want to start or move to being an open access journal?
Okay, I think my advice is very short and precise. They should just go for it. It's the best way in this era. But I really urge them not to compromise on quality. Quality is the most important thing that they need to focus on. It's not about just publishing your work online, then it's accessible to everyone out there. People really look at the quality of the journal as well. Looking at our journal, like we have been going through rebranding, we have been getting a lot of feedback from the community, and a lot of people are keen to publish with us, like they're promising us like their works and all that. Mostly, I think partly because they are looking at the quality of the journal, of the articles that we have produced over these past 2 issues. So
Definitely.
my advice would be, don't hesitate. You just need to go for it.